This podcast and every other podcast that I make is brought to you by my supporters on Patreon.
In Paris was the world premiere of the brand new Assassin's Creed Symphonic Adventure, as they are calling it.
That's cool.
A new kind of compendium show that's music from essentially the whole franchise.
Did you play in it?
Nope, I was purely a guest.
That's awesome.
Signed some stuff and waved to the audience and did some little yeah,
classic
exactly.
Austin.
Yeah, me and Jesper were both there.
Did you tell him I said hi?
I had to hold him at bay, yeah, from replacing me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was good fun. The show is essentially a summary of the whole franchise, and they arranged it where the games appear in chronological order, which made for a
Origins.
Odyssey, I think.
Odyssey
is the
first, Origins,
and then
Assassin's Creed 1.
And then, yeah, I think 1 and 2, and then 2 also had Brotherhood and
Revelations.
Revelations. And then what would that mean next?
Black Flag.
Yeah, either Black Flag
3.
or 3. Yeah. Well, no. I think Black Flag would be before 3.
Black Flag 3. Syndicate.
And then no, Syndicate's the end. That's the finale of the show because that's the most recent, which was funny.
Unity.
It was Unity, and then also what am I forgetting?
I still feel bad that your Assassin's Creed is the only one I haven't played. I'm sorry.
Just for that,
I played every other one. Oh God.
Syndicate really is. It's really, they did such a good job. It's so cool. London is a good environment for a game like that.
I don't think the fault of Syndicate not getting played as much, which I don't know if I'm alone in that, is because Unity was so buggy when it launched, and thus I think it burned Syndicate a little bit.
Oh, no, for sure. I mean, I remember explicitly getting the sense, this was nothing official, but I remember getting the sense that Syndicate had the kind of burden of being the redemption for Unity.
Right.
Like to go back to brass tacks, and it was in many ways a return to form. It was like, because Black Flag shook the formula up so much.
Yeah.
And then Unity was like this unfortunate train wreck launch, which,
there was still a lot of really fun stuff in that game. Like I still enjoyed Unity, but it was super buggy. And it was also...
the premise of co-op is also really cool for AFC.
And the way they did it too. It was very cool.
Yeah, their intentions are never bad. It's just a shame that with a game like that, you kind of get one chance, and they knew that it had been rough. And so Syndicate was like, let's kind of do one it doesn't reinvent the wheel the way Black Flag did, and it doesn't it's more stable. Let's try to not bite off more than we can chew. And so it did well. But the thing that blew my mind is that apparently Valhalla is the best selling of the entire franchise.
Whoa.
Just recently they announced across 20 million units sales, which is gotta be over $1 billion in revenue, I would think, for Ubisoft.
I do feel like I hear about that game a lot. I feel like that game has managed to stay relevant because they've supported it with a lot of DLC, a lot of which I think is free.
That may be true. I don't know.
I guess people like Norse mythology, so I don't know.
Seems to be that's in the, Sony's like, we should make something to compete with all this freaking Valhalla stuff.
I am going to steal the floor today, largely, Austin. I have not yet.
How dare you?
I haven't looked at the Metacritic. So, hello everyone.
Oh, I did.
I haven't seen any scores whatsoever. Hello everyone at home. We are recording the day that the God of War Ragnarok embargo broke, and I was supposed to go into the office. It was like an opt-in thing where you could go and watch the countdown for the Metacritic with I think 200 people ended up RSVPing. But then I had work to do last night, so I didn't get to bed until 4. So didn't do that. So then I've gotten a lot of texts, which make me suspect that people probably like it. But
but in all honesty,
I don't know.
I mean, you have a very unique perspective here as someone who has both written reviews and is deeply familiar with the goings on there, and someone who has incredibly behind the scenes knowledge of this game. So yes. I feel like the idea that you would be shocked by a review like a tidal wave of reviews is impossible. Like, I feel like you would have a pretty good sense going in of
the background of reviewing. So it's complicated. I've spoken about this on episodes before, right? Where it's like when you're, I've been playing the game for the last 2 years. Like, I've seen it in many stages, etc. And when you have that background, which I imagine has happened for you as well, I just feel like it's been hard for me to look at it objectively like I would as press. There are definitely some things that I'm like, this is fucking awesome no matter what. But in a lot of cases, I'm like, oh, that changed. Oh, I need to tell somebody about this. Oh, I need to take a note about that. Like, whatever. So I
wish they'd kept that.
There is one thing that I really miss, which is there was a period of time where Odin's ravens weren't animated, so they would just fly around the screen like JPEGs like that.
Like T-pose.
Yeah, T-pose ravens. And as soon as they took those out, I was like, oh, why? Definitely missed that. Put that back in. But no, I would be shocked if it's not getting in the 8 to 10 range.
Is there some reason why you're avoiding looking at Metacritic?
Because I wanted to do it for the show. I wanted to do it right now.
Well then fucking open it up.
Okay, let's do it. I
actually don't know what it was. I'm sure it's updated since. And
then let me.
No, it's the same.
I'm not looking at it. I'm trying not to look at it so I can screen share with you.
You want me to just hit you with a link?
Here we go. I still haven't read it. I still haven't looked. I'm just trying to avoid it. And then I gotta pull you over here for the recording. Can I make that bigger? I can't. Okay.
Get rid of those porn tabs. Here we go.
That's a 94. My God.
Frankly, a little disappointing.
Could have been higher. Oh my God.
That's 6 whole points, which, to be frank, is the writing's fault.
I think that might have even been like some people were like, we would love to get around a 95, which it is.
Do you remember offhand what the first one launched at? I'm sure that the number evolves over time slowly, but like, do you remember?
Also a 94, which like, holy shit. But like, look.
So basically what you're saying is everybody just copy pasted and did absolutely nothing new.
Yeah, the game's exactly the same. Oh my God. I'm shaking currently. I think this is excellent. It's a really interesting experience because, so I always feel like I have to give the context. I didn't work on this game a ton. And my pride comes a lot more from, like, I'm a part of the studio. I worked on this game. That's fucking crazy. But it's more so on behalf of, like, the people that I work with who were on it nonstop. I saw this journey happen and I was in all the meetings and I watched this for the last 2 and a bit years, or no, almost 3 years. No, it is 2 years.
And they must have been well underway with it when you joined, I would imagine.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And that's awesome. But it's also, I was realizing this today when I was thinking about why the Metacritic score matters. And this is probably a very unique perspective that's like only to people who went from journalism to working in dev. I'm like having trouble speaking. I
love it.
So when you work in game reviews, whatever, people always say the Metacritic score shouldn't matter. Who cares about the Metacritic score? It's just like, it's an aggregate. What the fuck does it matter? And the response will be, well, developers care. And the journalism response, which I think I probably even thought at some point, was, well, developers care because they get bonuses tied to it. Their companies shouldn't give them bonuses tied to it. It's not that at all. The reason that I care about this Metacritic score, I don't get a bonus tied to this game. It's because, and I only realized this literally today, why it matters of having previous, like, who fucking cares? It's just an aggregate. Who cares? Is because you're literally like your life's legacy. Like, it's everything I did to lead me up to the point. I'm gonna start crying. To work at Santa Monica Studio is like reflected in people liking it. Like, it's just like, yeah, the tireless work of a shit ton of people.
That's just it. We share the pet peeve for when people don't like a game and then or it's not even if they don't like it. It's even worse when they're like, it could have been better. It's like not even, it's like anything short of ravenous excitement somehow gets mixed into this idea of, I guess the devs, didn't work hard enough or didn't care or they fucked it up or they suck or
Totally.
fill in some like super reductive thing as if everybody didn't kill themselves working on this thing.
It's
creatively, in many cases, like people really do sacrifice a lot, especially the more senior leadership type positions where people,
Eric was in the office every day, even through the pandemic. He went into the office to work every fucking day. Like,
yep.
It's also, we have people in the team who like sold their houses and moved their whole lives to LA, like just before a pandemic hit to work on this game. Again, that's the perspective that I have today is very different of like, this isn't a bunch of people's opinions, who cares? Like, it's so easy to dismiss that when you work in press of like, why does it matter? It matters because it's years and years and years just aggregated, and it's still silly. Like, it's still a score that I still think is just a bunch of people's opinions, and I don't love the Metacritic system of aggregating. I mean, when you review games and you have to give a review a number, it fucking sucks. It's really hard to take 4,000 words and be like, oh, I don't know, an 8? Like, it's an awful process. I wish we could get rid of them. In general,
I think I don't know. You've mentioned that before, and I go back and forth because I understand that giving it a number creates this illusion of it being somehow objective or measurable, as if every time you reviewed it, if you reviewed it again 10 years from now, or if you gave it to a reviewer who comes from a different background or a different life, or someone who has kids and doesn't, someone who played for 10 hours straight versus someone who played 10 1-hour increments, it's as if all those things shouldn't matter, and the review score will always come out the same.
Yeah.
IGN's was very positive.
Yeah, I wanted to check because it's like, oh, Simon did it.
And we know that's not true. Somebody...
It's the closest you can get to that, but no, it's not true.
But it's entirely... It really is entirely subjective. And that's why I've always thought your advice to follow reviewers that you kind of find an inherent resonance with is a very interesting and good piece of advice, because then it sort of, that if someone gives it, like you just said, Simon, if Simon gives this a 10 out of 10, that is informed by theoretically having read prior ones, and that's a really... that makes that number actually have meaning. That makes that number actually relevant to something. Because you're like, oh, I remember Simon also hated this game I hated.
I agree with Simon on this.
I loved. And
there was a controversy recently about Modern Warfare. Like, it happens all the time with Call of Duty. It's so stupid. One of the Call of Duties got a worse score than the previous one, even though the community believes the current one is worse or whatever. And they're like, how can this possibly happen? And it's like, it's just two different people reviewed the games. That's it. If you had reviewed them, that's the order you would put them in. But sometimes the person who's reviewing this one, like the one that came out this year, didn't even play the last one. Because that's a problem that I think happens with FIFA and with Call of Duty or the annualized franchises, that sometimes the diehards get bored. They don't want to review the game anymore. So someone else has to.
Doesn't that become an argument in favor of Metacritic insofar as if you have like... somebody who's playing God of War for the first time ever. They never played the prior one. They never played any of the earlier iterations of the franchise. And they're like blown away. Or somebody that's very unimpressed because they don't have like this investment or all the different points of data. Yes, bearing in mind that a number is going to be subjective. But over time, in the same way that like statistics about human populations can be accurate, but they don't necessarily map to every individual person within a sample group.
That's true. Yeah. So then, like, by having Metacritic as an aggregate, again, it's just reducing a game to a score is just, especially when it's something as emotionally resonant as I think God of War Ragnarok is. I feel like that's very complicated, but it's the closest that you can get to the likelihood of having one person who's played every single game, one person who it's their first game, one person who doesn't know anything about Call of Duty, one person who only plays first-person shooters. And there has always been
also the different perspectives. Like there's outlets that review only PlayStation games, so they're really measuring it against other PlayStation games. There's people that are reviewing only AAA games. There's people that are reviewing et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that there's no perfect system, but I don't know that I can think of a better one. Especially because of the way the laws of averages work, anything above like 80 means you're getting really consistently good reviews. So to be in the mid 90s is means that, you're obviously getting astonishingly great reviews. It's just hard to maintain an average. You learn, every kid in school learns you have an A and then one fucking D in the whole semester.
Yeah.
Will pull the whole thing down so shockingly.
I think I never would have expected 100 because that's impossible. What is it? Toy Story 3 or something was one of the only on Rotten Tomatoes to have 100% ever or something. And
that's
then
a good question. It makes me realize do we know what the highest ever Metacritic game score is?
I think Ocarina of Time is really high up there. Metacritic.
Yeah, I just Googled it as well. Yeah, Ocarina of Time, 99.
Yeah.
There's one guy somewhere that's I think it's very good.
Therefore, is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 is second? That's so funny. Great game, but it's just so funny. Grand Theft Auto 4, Soul Calibur, Grand Theft Auto 4 again.
I can't say there's any on here that are surprised.
Mario Galaxy 2, Red Dead Redemption 2, GTA 5, Disco Elysium. I'm so glad Disco Elysium's there.
Yeah, that's the one I was just about to say. That's the one that's slightly surprising.
Yeah, just because it's very niche, but that's an example of a one that's complicated. It probably has less reviews than a game like God of War Ragnarok, but all the reviewers who are going to opt in to review that game are going to already be interested in the premise of it for the most part, or they're going to be reviewers who like a narrative. I mean, Disco Elysium's so fucking good, but
I would think though that this, I don't know, a list like this done properly would also weight by number of reviews, because if a game has one review of 100%. It's going to do better than Ocarina of Time. And there probably is some game that has one review of 100% that no one's ever heard of.
Maybe. I don't know. Or do you need to have multiple to get a score?
Well, that's a fair point.
I don't know how Metacritic works because there was one time where somebody told me something about how it works and I said that publicly and then Metacritic emailed me and was like, this isn't true. And I was like, oh, well, okay, then we don't know how it works. I don't know how fucking Metacritic works. But in any case, it's been a very wonderful journey for a lot of very, very hardworking people. And obviously the review scores coming today are nowhere near as exciting to me as the game coming out next week and getting to see people stream it and play it and react to it because I think it's very, very, very good. It is, I don't know how many times I've played through it at this point. And I still love
all of it?
No, just bits and pieces. Because sometimes the entire level's not there, and I have to jump through shit that wasn't there or whatever. Some of the things that have changed, it's been boss fights that were barely animated or emotional cutscenes where people's faces didn't move yet. A lot of very funny stuff that I'm sad is just lost to the ether of the previous builds that you can no longer activate. But yeah, today. I didn't know how I would feel.
I've worked on a lot of games where we were scrambling internally to get a review build, stood up in working order, knowing full well that there was going to be a bunch of work that happens after that. That's what the actual player launch build would be. And there's a little gap between there and that there's inevitably bugs or even missing content that would be part of a review build. It's going to vary game to game. But did you ever have it as the kinds of things you're talking about of missing animations and things like that? Did you ever have review builds come back in your reviewing days where it came also with the caveat of obviously some of this stuff is not finished?
Almost every single one. That still happens today when I get a game early that they'll usually say known issues are this, and this that are then fixed in usually the day one patch. So yeah, that still happens all the time.
Is that the kind of thing as a reviewer you feel should I
mention it? So if I
mention it,
if I
with
encounter,
the caveat that it's
if I encounter the error that they're mentioning, I will say this occurred. However, they said that this is part of this build and will be fixed. That's what I would say. I did have one game that I gave a negative score to. It was a Ubisoft game, Werewolves Within. It was that VR version of Mafia or Werewolf. And it was really, really fun, but so buggy. There were these things where you'd have to join a lobby, and sometimes the menu button wouldn't work, so everyone would have to leave and jump back in, and that happened all the time. And the community was bug solving because the whole thing was based on microphones. So if I had something not work, someone else would be like, "Oh, I had that yesterday. Here's how you fix that." And because the game is so fun, I emailed Ubisoft and I was like, I can try and hold on this review if you're going to fix these things within the next probably week, and then I could publish it when they're fixed and reflect that. But for now, I kind of have to give this a negative score because it's like you have to. The part of the gameplay is bug fixes effectively, and they said they wouldn't have it done in time. They were like, "We won't have this done in the next 2 weeks. It'll be fixed eventually, but that is what it is." So I just had to publish it knowing the bugs were there. It seems like one that would be like great to have an opportunity to update for that kind of thing, but if you know that they're there and that's the thing that people can buy right now, that's the thing you have to review. It's a complicated part of it, and I'm glad I don't have to do it anymore. It was very fun in my early 20s, but now like it's really tireless and thankless. It's fun to write. I've always liked writing. You get to write about a thing you like, and that's fun. But otherwise, it's a shitload of work, and I'm really glad that we gave reviewers access weeks ago, because to have to rush through a game can really hurt the experience.
Well, and how many reviews actually have finished the game at the time of writing the review? I mean, I would imagine so many games I look at, like, especially if you're talking a Red Dead, an Elden Ring, you just go, it's not like they gave it to them 2 months before.
Most people didn't finish Elden Ring.
Yeah, like, how could they? How could a reviewer possibly have? I also would argue you don't have to have finished most games to size them up. Like a lot of games, you can get a sense, some earlier than most, some earlier than others, I mean, but at some point you're like, I'm not going to suddenly like a game I'm not liking, or vice versa. I think my thing
is 4 hours. If I like it 4 hours in, I'm probably going to understand what the whole game is. 4 hours for most games, unless it's like an indie game. I mean, like of a AAA story-based thing, it's going to be 4 hours. And I agree that you can usually know what a game is going to be, but for something like Ragnarok, because the story is so important, it would be like not finishing The Last of Us.
Yeah, I mean, that's certain.
I haven't read any reviews yet, obviously, but I would imagine a lot of them finished it. I mean, I know people at like a number of people with Platinum did, and I'm probably going to go do that on my actual PS5. I don't have it's funny, people keep asking me for codes, obviously. Some of the DMs that I've gotten, they're so funny. Like, there's been people who were like, there was this one guy who was like, hey, just wanted to reach out because I'd really like Santa Monica Studio to sponsor my channel. They have 30,000 subscribers, and the deal is that if you pay me and you give me a code, then I'll play the game. But like a full genuine DM saying that, and I was like, shoot your shot, man. My God, like, Jesus.
I mean, look, I always admire, the worst that can ever happen is someone say no or not respond. So
he wasn't rude. He wasn't rude.
I always have admiration for, moxie, as it were.
He's trying.
But it is an interesting pitch, kind of knowing the scale of other channons out there that don't even get afforded that. And
if we sponsored anyone to, I wouldn't know. That's marketing. They're so separate. But I don't know if anyone's been paid to do anything to do with the game.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Did Sony even do that? Did they with Last of Us Part 2? I don't know either. I mean, I got paid for a Death Stranding campaign, but otherwise nothing to do with, I mean, Sony pays.
Usually it's enough to just give someone a code or like a collector's edition.
Yeah. What I was saying is I don't even have a code. I don't get a code until launch day.
God damn it.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why people think I can get them codes, because otherwise it's been, can you give me the email address for somebody who can give me a code? And like, I can't just give out my colleagues' email addresses to 100 people. I can't do that. Like, that would be really shitty of me.
It's just very funny to me that someone would even think, like, I don't do that with people I know. Because
it's been people I know. Yeah. People I know and complete strangers.
Well, okay, I did ask.
You did, so did Mike. Come on.
I did, in fairness, because I saw Mike do it. I'll just own up to that. Because he's not here, I'll fully confess I was riding his coattails on that one.
That's fair enough.
But if he were here, I'd 100% deny that. But
I respect it.
Yeah.
He doesn't listen to the show.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. The great irony, you're going to send Troy a code. I'm sure of it.
I don't get codes.
I know.
He wasn't the last one.
That's true. That's true. I'm fairly certain I remember killing his character.
Yes, you would have. Yeah.
He and Nolan.
Yes, which is so funny.
Yeah.
But
That was
yes,
good.
to put a button on it, it's I wasn't sure how I'd feel going in today.
How long is the game? Sorry. Well, I was essentially changing the subject.
According to reviews,
Continue.
I don't think
Approximate
I'm allowed
terms.
to answer that question. So it has to be. This is what people on the internet have been saying. I think.
Well,
I don't even know
was
what the
curious,
internal answer to that is.
just given that the last one I think was somewhere in the like 15 to 20 hour range, maybe as high as 30. If
Yeah,
you
I would
really
say 20
like
to
had
30. I think I finished it in 3 days, and it took me 25 hours.
but you also probably were thorough, I would think.
No. I did all the other shit after I finished the camp. Yeah, because I was trying to finish it before it came out, which sucks, which is hard. So I finished it really fast, just breezed through the story. And it was 25 or 23 maybe.
Hold on, let me see. How long to beat.com, the most useful website.
But the thing about I use that website all the time. The thing about
20 to 30.
Yeah.
51 for the completionist. 20 of which is just fighting the fucking Valkyries.
Yeah, it's so hard.
That was the line for me. The Helheim Valkyrie, I was like, this is not doable by normal people. It's very fair. That's the thing. It's not hard in a like, Jesus, this is bullshit way. It's like unapologetically going, you
will learn.
Have a narrow margin for error here, or non-existent, and have fun.
The thing I love about the Valkyries, and I've watched people fight them a bunch of times because it's fun to watch. The thing that I really like about it is anyone who is an aggressive player, you have to watch them like over the period of an hour trying to get through that final fight, learn to stop themselves from being so aggressive. Maybe they're people who come from like FPSs or something and they just want to run in and attack all the time, and you absolutely can't. You have to wait. And you watch them like humble themselves over time and slowly be like, okay, I have to be more patient. And it takes a really long time for people to do it.
I guess that's the Souls-like influence of button mashing like
rolling.
Yeah. I mean, because that's true of a lot of. I remember going through. It's very different, but I remember on Fallen Order having I hadn't really played a lightsaber game that wasn't basically button mashy on some level. That was one where it was like, no, you'll die if you just think you can hack and slash through every enemy. And God of War had the same quality. You're just vulnerable enough. I also thought they did such a good job at, again, I haven't played Ragnarok. I'm assuming that it's this and more, presumably.
I think it takes the core of the previous game and builds on it in almost every way.
I saw that IGN's sort of summary said essentially exactly that it doesn't fix what wasn't broken, but it also is not afraid to introduce new ideas.
There's difference. I mean, I think the pacing is very different. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say. I think there's definitely. I don't know. I think it's a really fucking.
Just go ahead and assume you can say anything. It's
and then get fired. Yeah, yeah, that's great.
How can you get fired? You just wrote the UI. What are you going to spoil?
Exactly. That's it. What else do I know?
No, but I loved that. It even like Atreus is not window dressing in terms of like actual combat mechanics. Like there's a real. It really felt like I was leveraging both characters in a way that you had to. You had to kind of learn and get good at. And then it made it. It was one of those classic, where's Troy when you want to talk about ludonarrative dissonance? But that idea that the character arc really did feel folded into my own increased skills with commanding both characters at once. And that's really cool because historically games like this were like, get through all the fighty bits, whatever, and then we'll have cool cutscenes.
Yes.
And boy, did that not the case on this one, and I fully anticipate. Maybe the big innovation of Ragnarok is camera cuts. Maybe they're like, oh, we learned that you can shift perspective. Yeah. Turns out that was all born of ignorance. They were like, I just don't know. I guess if you don't have film stock, you just roll forever.
Nope, none of those, which is, I think I would love to actually have like Corey or Eric sit down and talk about it, because I think that is, people already expect it to be hard. I think it is infinitely harder than people realize. The things that like you could do in most games. You have to be like, well, we can't do that because we can't cut. It's a lot. Very, very
As someone who grew up where loading screens were like, never mind.
It wasn't even that long ago, Austin. It was like the PS4.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's true. I mean, it's still a lot of games. They're very normal in most games, even if
I
they
always
don't
just think about
technically have to be
Bloodborne.
there.
It was like 2 minutes. It took so long.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember they became an extension of the gameplay. I'll never forget 20 plus years ago playing EverQuest, where, you know, it's like you accidentally aggro an enemy that's out of your range and you can't deal with, but if you just run to the edge of the zone, you'll zone out and escape them. You'll in the game's geography sense, you'll cross 1 inch and all threats vanish. And, you know, that became part of the, like, that became part of strategy. It actually, players embraced this as like, oh, how can we exploit this? It's not even a bug. It's just it's just a necessary evil. And, you know, that was always, like you said, minutes long. Especially remember, like, when CD-ROMs first became a thing, and the drives themselves weren't that fast by comparison to today. So, like, it felt, and you'd feel it, like you'd go to do something and hear the drive like sort of laboriously kick to life. And so just the lack of loading screens, never mind the continuity between different sort of modes of gameplay, on and off the boat, in and out of cutscenes, all the crazy kind of, I don't know if you want to call them quick time events, but the way the kind of big set pieces are designed with all the kind of more choreographed camera work and stuff versus the free roaming open world or whatever kind of stuff. The fact that it's all done so well. I mean, I opened up 2018 God of War a few months ago and fucked around for a couple hours, figuring, I should replay it, knowing Ragnarok is coming. And then, of course, I never finished it. But I did finish it once upon a time. And even revisiting it, I was like, man, it's so slick. It's so impressive. Because even the classic, like, the classic modern, like, narrow passageway, hide the loading, in the, you know, I always think of like Tomb Raider or Uncharted, or they did it a lot in Plague's Tale, where you're kind of like narrowing and the kind of camera gets up on there. It's like such a classic way to hide moving
that's
assets
also
around.
Not always the case. I think people think that those are loading every time, but a lot of the time it's just pacing, or it's trying to make sure that you don't get lost, and so you're in a new area and you know that there's a difference between the two areas.
Sure.
They aren't always loading screens. But when they are, it's cool. It's like the Dead Space elevator.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I mean, Mass Effect elevator. Remember how long that used to take?
Yeah, I remember that was one of the biggest notable changes on the... I always wished, kind of like the boat in God of War, is some of my favorite moments in the game. Just the way that the storytelling kind of becomes the focus, but you're still very much doing something, and you're even exploring and learning about the environment and trying to figure out what to do.
A lot of that stuff was written very late too. I don't know what it was. I didn't work.
Can you correct me if I'm wrong? I swear I remember a GDC talk or maybe a podcast or something with, I assume, Corey. Maybe it was a designer working like lower on the like a design director or somebody. I can't remember who said this, but I came across like a thing that was basically a Hail Mary of there was like boat based combat and stuff. There were enemies and there was for tech related reasons, it was never satisfying, or they couldn't quite get it to work satisfactorily. And the whole idea of, well, what if they just essentially talk so that we don't have to bullshit some kind of fast travel or something, like we can't be fighting out in the water because it's just not working, or getting in and out of the, maybe it was like there was swimming and getting in and out of the boat was proving problematic, something like that. That they spoke about, and then this was like a solution that ended up being far better than the thing it was fixing.
I don't doubt that. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I do know that a lot of the boat writing came later on, and that's such a credit to Mimir as a character and his voice actor, that a lot of that content is Mimir lore, like him sharing stories about, I don't know, Norse myth or the God of War take on it, and the fact that he keeps those all so captivating is a massive credit to that actor. I can't even imagine how many lines he actually had in 2018.
Not to mention also just the subtle but so welcome thing that so many games either didn't have the capacity for, or tech issues, or just didn't think to try, of you get off the boat, you go do your, local objective that you're chasing down, and then you get back in the boat and they're like, anyway where
what
were
were we saying? I love that. Yeah.
Oh man, me too. That was I remember thinking, how has this not been the norm for the last 20 years? Because there's nothing that big of a leap about it, but I can't remember any game kind of having kind of like a separate timeline going, oh, you're this far along in the conversation and all the interruptions, they're going to keep coming back to it. I don't know how they did it from a tech setup, but I assume it was something along those lines.
Very complicated. The narrative design stuff that basically triggers like when those specific barks or I don't know what the most basic way to say that phrase is, when lines of dialogue are triggered, is very, very, very complicated. A lot of game writing, I imagine everywhere, is, but how do we convey this to the player and how does it go with gameplay? It can be really, really technical. Like it can be very like, we need to follow these rules. It takes a lot of the passion out of writing because a lot of it, like, you're not just like, and they felt these emotions. They're like, okay, but when did that arc fall so that it pays off for this act or this boss fight? Can this happen here or what? Like, it's very, very, very technical work. So then just getting to write something where a character just has an opinion is just really fun. Like, because it's most of your job is actually not that in a lot of cases. I think that maybe indies are a little bit more like that, but it's also like, do we have the budget for this scene? Can we afford to do this thing? Well, and
also just the open world. Any game that even is approaching open world starts to introduce a lot of complexity where it's like you have to have all these states that the system is tracking of, is this a conversation or is this a line that makes sense if the player has gone off and done X already? So we have to make sure that if the player has done X and now the character mentioning A, it no longer works, that those two systems actually are talking to each other, and that way you don't end up with somebody being like, how cool is so-and-so, and they've been dead for the last 2 hours of gameplay. Like I remember, a lot of games, you can find the edges of the success of those systems if you're really thorough. Like even on a Mass Effect or something, which is all things considered, those are pretty damn polished games. But like, there's just so much writing that sometimes you can kind of go do a thing and then ask someone a question, and it's like, I've already done that mission, and they're like briefing me on it or something along those lines. And you go, this is a technical challenge in a way that's very kind of mind-blowing.
Writing a book or a short story or a poem or a screenplay is like probably what most writers want to do. I think that like writing a game is a lot of working with other departments and making sure that the whole giant beast that you're trying to make functions. Like I said, very technical.
Will you be in a position to walk through a lot of that inside nature of those questions? Like once it's out in the world, do you know yet where your kind of boundaries are in terms of how transparent you can be with these kinds of, like, especially the tech related? Because this is stuff I would love to unpack.
I'm probably allowed to talk about that stuff anyway. What I can't do, and why I have to be really careful about saying anything, is because I exist in a very unusual bubble of my audience size almost making me press. So it's not that like other devs could probably tweet something that I can't, because if I do, it has the risk of making a news headline, more people are likely to see it, and even on my own channel or streams or whatever, it's almost like I'm a media outlet, so I have to get media approval to be able to talk to myself, which is like very weird and complicated. So that's why I'm so careful, because I don't want to speak on behalf of the studio, which is weird because I work there, without PR being okay with things that I'm saying, where again, It wouldn't matter if someone else is on fucking Twitter, but like everybody else at the studio has to get approval to do a podcast to talk about God of War. I'm not approving every episode of Play, Watch, Listen.
It's comparable, I think, to like, Troy and Neil and people like that when a Last of Us comes out, having to go through quite a few approvals.
Yeah, but I don't, because it's Play, Watch, Listen is not it's not a God of War podcast, so It's just I live in a very weird bubble where I err on the side of caution, and I think they want me to also, but like I really am being more careful than maybe I need
see.
to.
I think I misunderstood. So in other words, you like obviously we've never had to seek approvals. We've always spoken, and then obviously we just things get cut if they think if they fly too close to the sun.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is theoretically, if you tested the limits of that might change the rules here.
It's more that
or you'd get fired.
Again, I wouldn't get fired for it immediately, but it's more that I don't want to be a shit. Like, I don't want to be difficult for my team. I don't want to like give PR or marketing a headache. My job is so much more important to me than a podcast or a YouTube channel. So it's more that I want to be respectful of the people I work with than anything else. So it's just
I'm insulted.
It's just that I recognize that I live in a weird spot where like I think I'm allowed to upload a YouTube video of me playing the first hour. I was told no, and then they're like maybe yes because other people will, maybe, we don't know. And again, people could be like that's weird, but it's because I am media. And it's almost like I'm two people in that I'm media also talking to a game dev, so that it needs to be approved because I'm media, even though I'm
Would you want
not.
to? Like, given your position, you've obviously streamed a million things before. This one you have a unique relationship with. Would it even be fun to do that? Like,
I don't think I want to because I'd have to walk on eggshells the whole stream. Like I am now is easier to do when it's a conversation with another person. But if I'm streaming God of War, I'd be like, oh, can I say that? And I feel like that's easier to watch on a podcast than it is on a stream.
It'd be one of those streamers where they forget there's people watching. So you'd just be playing. It's just your face, just watching the game.
That's what it's like when I've done reactions to all of the trailers or conferences. The whole time I'm just like smiling silently and staring at it. Like, yeah, cool. So that's the thing that happened. So I think I can talk about technical aspects of game writing. Also in part because I'm currently doing a little bit of work on another franchise entirely that isn't even at Sony. Like I'm just doing a thing in my spare time as a contract, and I've done that twice before too. I just don't talk about what they are. So I can talk about
post release though, when unannounced project comes out, and I invariably play it and hold it over Mike, who plays it 2 years later.
Of course.
And I'm like, so this part, can you explain to me this? From a technical standpoint, is that a thing that you'd be like, no, I can't?
It'd all have to be approved by Sony PR.
Interesting. Well, I'm gonna ask
again. Maybe I could, but I don't want to fuck them over. That's it. I just don't want to screw over the team of people that I work with. So I'm here to be celebratory and be very proud of the team that I work with, and be proud of my even tiny input on Ragnarok.
That's actually exactly highlights sort of why, because certainly, speaking only for myself, the kinds of questions I would ask, they're invariably stemming from, here's the thing I found really cool and interesting, and your answer would be here's the thing that all these people came together and did, and this is why we're really proud of it. And like, it's not that I'm trying to tee up you know.
No, I know you're not
bragging,
being a journalist,
but it would be more. Yeah, well, or that either.
Trying to get a clickbait
not
headline.
Looking for dirt, not looking for clickbait, and also not looking for just like teeing you up in a like to sit there and you know, sort of brag or like, but it would be more just, here's the thing that really worked, and I'd love to know how this works. That would be where I'd be coming from, and it's interesting to know. I'm gauging how heartbroken future me needs to be when I'm told I can't ask about this.
I would say you could try, and I will figure it out.
Here's an earnest thought, because I really, you know, obviously I love that on this show we talk about everything. And for the love of God, tell me if you've started on Andor, but pause.
I haven't yet. I'm waiting till it all comes out.
Oh my God. This last one,
I'm waiting till
I've already seen a lot of tweets about this, but like, I genuinely got full-blown goosebumps from the last 5 seconds of yesterday's episode, where it was just like, fuck, what a payoff. Good God, it is so well written.
I think I'm going to wait until they're all out and watch the first 3. And then I think it's like, and then 2, and then there's like an order in which people are suggesting you watch them like they're films. But I'm going to wait till they're out.
I've heard, I think there's going to be 12 total, and then it's basically 4 groups of 3. But it's not like they're so standalone that you shouldn't just watch them.
I've just heard the first 2 are a bit weak.
Well, no, it's the first 3 as a unit, but I don't think they're weak. It's just one of those that it's clearly it's playing chess and not trying to win in the first 4 moves. It's going, you'll thank me later. It felt like that to me. I went in like going, Star Wars has broken my heart 30 times in a row, and so even overcoming my skepticism, despite the fact that I love Rogue One a lot, it's like the one outlier that I just have unapologetic love for, and this being attached to it, I thought, okay, it's got a good shot, but I went in with a pretty high dose of skepticism, and it just overwhelmingly felt like at its slowest, it's not that it's slow, it's that they're putting pieces in place and have the confidence to go, 4 episodes from now, you'll thank me. And it has delivered every step of the way. But
yeah,
anyway,
the other Star Wars shows have not done that.
No, they've felt, and look, I have a lot of sympathy for the difficulty of
100%.
making a giant production. These are highly scrutinized. There's a lot of people, a lot of cooks in the kitchen. In fact, this one feels like they somehow dodged that. It feels very personal. It feels like the kind of script that a small, very trusted group or even one person goes off and writes and comes back, and it's like you can't pull any thread without pulling it all apart. And I don't actually know what their process was, so it could be it's just as cooks in the kitchen-itis as all the rest, but just somehow came out brilliantly. Anyway, all that said, all that was an aside on, I love when we talk about all things non-video games as well. But because my favorite, I think, moments of Play, Watch, Listen are when we really kind of lean on each other's specialized knowledge on things. I would even go, you can tell me if this is something you're comfortable with or is even appropriate or even possible. You could shoot this down any number of ways. But if there were things that, when playing the game, if there's things that I'm dying to ask about, I would be happy to preemptively say, can you get permission to talk about this? Because I'm dying to ask, and it would be useful to talk, like, so that you're not in a position of having to make the call. You can actually find out officially.
I think that it would be easy to this is such a weird conversation for us to have as part of the podcast, like when I know we're like planning a future episode. I would
you
probably
can cut all this if you feel like it's
send it to
no good,
Sony. I would record it and I would send it to Sony and be like, can we publish this? That's what I think I would do.
Fair because I really value, like, more and more the last year and a half, like as events have started to come up, and like, you know, I was at Game Sound Con here in LA, which is an event that's kind of like the audio track of GDC as its own conference. It was last week. And then, you know, PAX type things, GDC type things. Every year, or for the last year, as those have started to become more routinely in person again, I've just constantly had people come up and go, dude, love Play, Watch, Listen. Or like I see it on my own channel comments that are like, oh, I have a question on Play, Watch, Listen. You mentioned Alanah. Can you go in more detail, like in one of your more kind of composer-specific videos?
Yeah, I definitely think the value of the show is like, not the stupid shit we talk about, but in fact the knowledge that we share.
That's the thing. I take a lot of joy, and like, even dare I feel bold enough to feel it, like pride in the idea that we really do all have different takes, and there's just no question that you know, one of the reasons why I take such pride in my prior collaborations with Santa Monica in particular is that, like, it's a fucking just unbelievable studio, and like anything that can be gleaned from their model. I have a friend whose birthday was a few weeks ago, and he works at Naughty Dog as an audio programmer, and his sort of like senior audio director, who's in charge of essentially all things audio for Naughty Dog, was at the party. And, you know, it's just sitting there for an hour asking him questions about like the Ellie breathing system in Last of Us Part 2.
Dude, that's the best thing about like a DICE. You were telling me that you spoke to one of the designers on It Takes Two, and I was like, I would fucking love to do that. I want to just talk to them about how the fuck they made that game. It's so impressive. Like, and I think that that's also just a testament to why we're in the industry. I'm forever interested in how video games are made and what other people are doing, especially now that the more I learn is like how different studios function. It's tremendous.
For sure. Yeah, that the whole Game Maker's Notebook part of my podcast palette is so much fun for that exact reason. That It Takes Two one with Philip Erickson was especially good because it blew me away how insanely well, like because of Joseph Ferris, like at the Game Awards, creating this immediate image of like the kind of crackpot sort of like
he's a drunk rock star.
At best he's that. At best he's like the chaotic genius.
Yeah.
Best case scenario, and then like slightly more cynical people would go, that guy must be a nightmare. And what I love is that you talk to people at Hazelight and they're like, first off, he's great, but also I was so floored in talking with their audio director and kind of senior sound designer about just how well organized and scoped they were. It was constantly like, oh yeah, we started to realize we were trending behind in it, so yeah, we cut this, we cut that, and we stayed perfectly on schedule, and everything was fine.
Probably what made that game, which is so fucking hard.
Like, it was crazy. It was one of those where I kept going, this must have been really stressful, and he was like, no, we just trimmed 5% when we realized, and it was just like, he just constantly
here's a thing that I will say about Santa Monica Studio that you can write a news headline about if you want. Of all of the places I've ever worked, I've never felt more like I've been treated like a human. And I feel like that leads into people making good video games. I feel
this is terrible clickbait.
Yes, I feel like people care about me and care about each other. I feel like if anyone on the team is sick or whatever, we're like, it's cool, we'll catch you up. There's no, really? Like, we really could have used you today. It's not, and I've had that in so many environments that seem so much less important, working on shit that doesn't cost anywhere near as much as God of War fucking Ragnarok. And I feel like that positivity grants you even more of a sense of pride. And of course, I'm only speaking for myself. I don't know what everybody else's experiences are like in other departments, whatever. But my manager is, Anoop, is a wonderful, kind, caring person who, if I have something I need to ask, he will talk to me about it for as long as I need. Everyone on my team is that. It's just the environment is so... like, we're all a bunch of people with a bunch of different lives working on something to try to make it good, and I feel like that's reflected in the quality of the work. It's a really fucking great place to work.
And you know what I think? I think because of Santa Monica, Naughty Dog, a few others as industry leaders, very much like they are for many people the city on the hill they are working towards in their career, or if nothing else, they just represent a parallel example of a shining example of how it ought to be, because they are studios that people routinely have, like, I've just talked to so many people that have had such positive experiences at a bunch of different studios, and even studios that I read all these headlines that make it sound like it's hell on earth, and I actually talk to people there, and you realize it's hard to generalize.
And I mean, there could be somebody who feels that way at the company I work at, who feels like it's hell on earth. I don't know how everybody feels like that.
Yeah, you make very clear your experience
is extremely positive.
What I was going to say is the nice thing is, because it's a small enough industry, and because it's a very competitive industry in which there is a lot of competition amongst hiring entities for the best possible talent. Like, if you're, like, for example, speaking from my side of it, if you're a senior level from an experience and how many games you've shipped kind of standpoint, audio person, like a person in a position to be hired as a studio audio director, where you've shipped games, where you've hired and managed composers, sound designers, voice, like booking and managing voice sessions, that kind of thing. That there is such a shortage industry-wide of people with high-level experience in that there is just like, if you announce if you are an audio director at any one of these, Ubisoft, EA, Microsoft, who's got some pretty serious experience, and you even give a hint that you're kind of on the market, it's like they will be beating down your door so aggressively because there's a real shortage of that, and the result is, because a lot of departments, it's an expanding, growing industry. There's a lot of pressure to get good people everywhere. The result is, when you treat people amazingly, it forces other companies to have to treat people amazingly, because you're like, if I have the choice between two jobs that are offering me comparable salaries, but this one has a reputation for being really awesome to its people, then I'm going to pick them. Like,
100%.
It would take a pretty big, either massive pay bump or like promotion that you weren't being otherwise offered to overcome like a really shitty reputation. So what you're saying, I'm happy to see. I see it across just about every studio that I work. Like, I go to a lot of stand-ups over the course of the last several years of different projects at different stages of development, and like, I can't think of a single one that isn't how you just described, where they are really making sure everybody's heard and seen. Everybody's like, if somebody needs time, a lot of companies have more or less no questions asked. Like if someone's like, I'm dealing with a thing.
A lot of people right now are taking a full month off, which is fucking awesome. Yeah, but we also get, like usually in August, they give you wellness days. It's just like, hey, everybody take a break. Which, like, media never did any of this shit. Like, my God.
Yeah,
they didn't care about us at all.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in people, you know, like I there's a lot of schools of thought here, and as a freelancer, I don't like the argument of, if I agree to X contract that so-and-so, some other colleague of mine would deem unacceptable, that I'm somehow harming collectively all composers. That is a thread I have seen pushed repeatedly. I vehemently disagree with that.
A lot of writers say don't work for free. I only am where I am today because I worked for free.
Yeah, I've heard you say that, and
there's no way I would have gotten experience if I didn't work for free.
Genova Chen, when he was making his thesis called Flow 15 years ago, we were both students, and he said, I have $500 to pay you for music. And I said, this is basically one, poor student shuffling money to a different poor student. It doesn't really feel right. So I said, tell you what, keep half. I appreciate it. I was not used to anywhere near that kind of payment in those days, but I also thought, I feel weird. It feels like, what is it for? I already have everything I need. It's an electronic score. I'm not going and hiring an orchestra or something. So like, it's just a gesture. So I thought, how about we split it? So I told him, go take your boyfriend, girlfriend, best friend, parents, whatever, to like a super, super indulgent dinner. I'll take the $250. And that'll be that. And like 5 years later, he told me that was why he hired me. Like he told me that comment was and I had no idea. We were like at the Journey launch when he was like, by the way, back when we did Flow, like as students, not even the PlayStation version, this was the thing that made me realize you were the guy for the project. And it didn't occur to me at the time. And it was one of those where I thought, well, I should tell this story publicly more often then, because the story I keep hearing pushed is that I was like undercutting competition, or I was this or that. And I was like, people have to make decisions that's right for them.
Yeah, you're being compassionate.
Yeah, that was a decision that was not made on the basis of, like, I don't know. I don't even know if he was considering someone else, and they were like, I'll take the 500. And like, even if that was the case, you're only responsible, especially as a freelancer, for your own decisions in that way. But you definitely, it's different for non-freelancers. And that's why I like these studios, that the culture definitely has shifted towards one of like my favorite kinds of studios are let's work really hard. Let's really all let's not fuck around here. We want to make something awesome, and sweat equity is a thing, but recognize we are also people living lives, and life sometimes will rear its head in ways that we should all make sure we've kind of got each other's back when that happens, and be compassionate to circumstances, and not, make it feel like the only thing that matters to any of us at all times 24/7 is this game. Anything else should fall by the wayside. Like, let's strike a balance and be compassionate to each other's different relationships to that balance. And some people are going to be different places on that. Some people are going to live and die for the game and want to work 24/7 on it, and nights and weekends or whatever. And some people are like, 5 o'clock, I pick up my kids. You won't hear from me again until 9 a.m. And both are okay.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, like, if something occurs to me after hours, which it does all the time, I'll like message people or send an email or something and be like, hey, pitch, whatever. But every time I'm like, don't reply to this until 9 a.m. Like, every time I'm like, please do not respond. Do not feel compelled to respond if I'm working late. You do not have to also work late. And I do that every single time. And I feel like other people do the same thing. Like, just,
and I imagine some people
ignore me and some people don't.
Yeah, exactly. Like that, to me, that's a healthy. There's one studio that I really love where they have these. I can't really get into any specifics, but there's a studio where they do these really they do these like they like work on whatever you want sprints, where normally it's like the milestones are very targeted on here's what we're hoping to achieve, and it'll be baked into publisher contracts of like, by this milestone, these systems will be working, this amount of narrative will be complete. Like a lot of games will have fairly parsed out milestone schedules that are being decided ahead of time and or revised as we go. Because I get handed that all the time as a composer, that's like, by this date we need these levels done, by this date we need these levels done musically, because they just have a large schedule of all the different bits broken up over the course of the game. But periodically, this one particular studio, I'll eventually be able to talk about it, like they'll just tell the team, for this week, anything you want to work on is fair game. And then they'll do like a show and tell of, what'd you decide to work on? And this person was like, there's been this system that's not high priority, but it's been bugging me because it's not working right, and it won't be needed till later, but I finally got it working. Check this out. All the rest of the people in the stand-up are like, oh my God, that's so exciting. I'm going to take advantage of that. Isn't it? Like,
God, I know exactly what I would do if I was given that week. That's definitely like a thing that I'm like, I would do exactly this one thing that is exactly that. It's like a thing that I need to do, but it hasn't been able to be done. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's really cool. Like, I know a lot of studios do game jams, like internal game jams, which is also pretty awesome.
TGC did, when the collector's edition of like the TGC trilogy came out, after Journey shipped, that had Flow and Flower on it. It also has on there like the 3 or 4 game jam games that they made that are like awesome. Terrible but amazing.
I wanted to ask off that, Austin. So like today's obviously a cool day for me that I think I'll probably spend the afternoon. I mean, I have another meeting, but reading positive things on the internet and just feeling wild about it again because of that sense of sort of legacy that, like you were saying, Santa Monica Studio does have a lot of really senior people who've been in the games industry for such a long time. And I'm so passionate about video games that people will just drop a game they worked on and be like, oh, when I worked on Far Cry 2, and I go, what? And I'm like, I'll be that person for a junior one day. I'll be like, I worked on God of War Ragnarok. That's so fucking cool.
And again, sliders didn't write themselves.
Again,
I'm never gonna let that go.
It's fine. I'll allow it. I don't think they're gonna make a news headline out of that. It's all good. Gamma sliders was me. I wrote GAMMA.
I'm gonna call in a favor over at IGN. I need you to publish this headline. Never mind that it's just flatly false.
Did you? Have there been any releases in particular? Like I imagine Journey's a big one where you were like waiting for the embargo to drop. Like, was there an anticipation of any? Do you do it for every game, or is it? Because you work on a lot of games as a composer.
Yeah, it's always fun, and some companies kind of ritualize it. I think I remember Mike actually mentioning that they have kind of like it's like beer and pizza day or whatever.
We did breakfast tacos.
Yeah,
but we also have a countdown to launch next week that I'm really excited about. Where like I'm going into the office while we wait for the actual countdown timer. Pretty much, yeah. I think that's gonna be fun, and then we have our wrap party next week. It's all very exciting.
Yeah, so those kinds of little things are can be great. Launch parties, all that kind of thing tend to be very special. In fact, I remember the Flower. I didn't work on Flower, but I remember I went to the Flower launch party as a friend of that game company and as someone who had kind of play tested it along the way and was very excited about it. I remember going to the Flower launch party, and Genova goes, "You have a second?" and giving me the 1 second elevator pitch on what the next game was going to be, and going, "We should get dinner, and I'd love to tell you about it."
I'm sure I've asked you this before, but what was that elevator pitch for Journey? What is that?
It was a game where you are. He goes. I want to see if I can distill Joseph Campbell's monomyth into a series of of playable moments where the player has to traverse a landscape and can encounter another player and have a really almost spiritually positive experience. His goal was, I want to see if I can instill genuine love between two strangers, because he goes, multiplayer or even co-op experiences are seemingly on some level antagonistic. And he goes, I wonder if I can make people, in Genova terms, he would basically say, I wonder if I can make strangers fall in love. And I remember it was go on. It was wow. We'll get dinner, I'll tell you more.
That's actually very powerful, because I do feel like Journey is probably the closest I have ever been to that feeling of, you don't know who they are, they don't actually talk to you, but the companionship is there almost instantaneously. And no one can do anything to negate it. It has to be there. You can't really antagonize in Journey. That's really cool.
The fact that there's still players to this day who have their white cloaks that go on and go looking for newbies, you know, to like show them around and show them where all the hidden glyphs are, and like, yeah, it appealed to your best nature and rewarded you for doing so. It was a game that really kind of like gamified our best version of ourselves, and he had that was the pitch, and I remember going, so good luck with that, buddy.
I know, that's so impressive to have that as the foundation. Oh, that's so cool. Like that is,
if you think about it, it is an iteration. Well, in fairness to them, like it was also kind of an iteration beyond Flower of Flower gamified, can I just make the world more beautiful? And this was essentially, can I do that in a sense with someone else? Yeah, it was kind of just what's the next step? Like,
you're right. It's shit. Never mind. Yeah, it's actually super easy. Whatever.
It was a very impressive. It was one of those where I remember feeling distinctly. I was in my mid-20s, and I thought, as someone who's been a lifelong gamer and has felt my taste of what I'm looking for in games change, I thought, as a gamer, this feels like where I'm at in life now. This is the kind of game I'm looking for, and I haven't found, and I was astonished that I would be lucky enough to be part of, but just even as a gamer, I thought this is a thing I'd love to play, and there was that voice in me going, if they can pull it off, because that sounds impossible. That just seemed so lofty. I mean, even still, 10 years later, it's like, wow, it's not like that became a whole genre. It's kind of esoterically... But to your question, the Journey review embargo was far and away the most memorable of those I've ever experienced, because I had zero sense of if
people would like it.
If people, if it was going to resonate, because I just thought it was this rare thing where it felt like we did what we wanted to do. It felt like the game we wanted to make. We didn't have all these apologies of like, man, if only there was, this thing is busted and we know it and we're going to patch it, or like, it really felt like with all the schedule extensions, and obviously it was a brutal development for TGC. I mean, there's a lot of stories people can find about how it was not easy on the team, but I think most of us, and certainly myself, felt like for all the challenges, the game that shipped is basically the game we want to make. What we don't know is if that's universally or even broadly in any sense appealing to other people. It's like I made a dish where I combined these things that I've never really tasted other people, and I don't know if that's a good flavor, but I did make the thing I went to make. And so it was like the reviews could be, this is a bunch of typical fucking indie pretentious walking simulator. I was fully prepared for that. Or I thought, look, I think that they did a good job. I'd like to think I did a good job. And there's hopefully going to be some contingent of the reviewers that say the same. And then for that day to come out, and it was just like this wall of
tense,
like, gaming has changed. I was like, that I wasn't prepared for. And I've never had an experience like that since then.
That is awesome.
Especially because it was also just very unusual that the music had such a kind of privileged position in the overall gameplay that every review mentioned me. And I was not accustomed to that either.
Yeah.
First time I was ever mentioned in a review ever was in 2008, when I had a film premiere at Sundance, and Hollywood Reporter and Variety both mentioned me in their review during Sundance, and one hated the score and one loved the score.
No way.
And they both mentioned me
wow,
as part of their praise / criticism.
Wow, that's so weird.
It was, and I remember that was before smartphones and stuff, so I had to go to like the public internet, like rentable IMAX to read
see
the
Hollywood
reviews.
Reporter roast you.
Yeah, it was. Thank God Todd McCarthy at Variety was like, the score really supports the movie. They both loved the movie, so the director was on cloud nine.
Yeah,
and he totally trolled me. He goes, "Oh my God, you have to go read the Hollywood Reporter," because he goes, "We couldn't have bought a better review. Like, it was so good." And then like the very end of it, it goes, the overly sentimental score by Westerner Austin Winter, because it's like the movie was set in Jordan, and virtually everyone on the movie was from Jordan or from the Middle East in general. The director was born in Amman, and we made a conscious choice and stand by it. Like, this is a universal story. Let's try to tell it in a kind of cinema language and not in a don't try to make it feel like, oh, this is some quaint regional thing and go all Jordanian with the music. Let's try to show this could take place anywhere on the planet and use the kind of conventional language of cinema to achieve that. That was the thing that was actually the director's pitch to me, the Jordanian director's pitch to me. And we loved it. We recorded at Warner Brothers scoring stage, Big Lush Hollywood Orchestra. It was a dream come true. I was 22 years old, 3 months out of university.
Damn.
And it was a dream of a lifetime. I mean, it was one of the best experience. I mean, Queen Rania of Jordan came to our premiere in Amman. It was unbelievable experience. One of the best movies ever. It's called Captain Abu Ra'ad. And when it was not nominated for Best Foreign Film at the Oscars, LA Times actually wrote an article saying, like, they're obviously not watching the movies because this should have been nominated for Best Picture. Never mind, should have been a shoe-in to win Foreign Film.
Damn.
It was such a special film. Anyway, it was the first time seeing my name in print in a review that was glowing. And then they were like, yeah, but the Western score thing, I don't know about that.
That's really funny.
It was like, my career's over. I just pictured like all of Hollywood, like holding up these magazines of the Hollywood Reporter going, I'm going to take note of this guy's name, put him on our shit list. Like, you have these irrational horror feelings and it makes you realize, okay, reviews, they only matter so much. And it's a healthy lesson to learn even when they're really positive. Where you go,
for sure.
By far the best, I will speak for you. I'm going to mansplain to you.
Great.
The far more valuable than the Metacritic and all that are going to be the tweets and the DMs and the, like, this game, like, I learned to love again. You know,
I tried to touch on this before, but I think I glossed over it myself. Was review embargo is one thing. I've been like kind of like weirdly nervous about it all day. I don't know why. Mostly just very proud, but next week is the bigger deal for sure. The media matters a lot less than the people who play it and love it. And like, I really do care about the story a lot. Like, I feel very strongly about it. And I guess we had leaks. I didn't even really know about it until my mom called me and told me, which
I haven't heard any. I've certainly had no spoilage.
I just don't spend a lot of time on Twitter anymore, so I don't see a lot of that stuff. Obviously there were updates internally on how that's being handled also, but I found out because my mom called me and told me, and that sucks. So I'm just going to mute all keywords on all of the comments so nobody can spoil anything for like the next 3 months or whatever. But I'm really excited to see people play it and stream it, and I'll probably spend a lot of time watching Let's Plays of people finishing the game or some of the like really sentimental moments, and I'm really, really excited about that.
That is definitely that. I do love that about Twitch. Watching people play like Abzu for the first time, or Journey, or any number. I love even just like, I'll never forget watching Brian and Amelia play The Last of Us Part 2, and like when they got to some of the real gut punch moments of that, they publicly melted down, like in a very internal collapse kind of way, in a like, I need to be quiet for the next couple hours sort of way, not in a explosive radioactive way, but it was like, I'm not super okay right now in the best way, like as the best possible review for how visceral some of the moments of that game were. And watching it, maybe I'm just naturally empathetic or something, but I got so wrapped up in their response. It was like playing the game for the first time again.
That's awesome.
And it was just like, and I didn't even work on that game, but just thinking, this is a really special thing that's like a side order effect. And what's great is that could happen. You could get tagged in a tweet about this game 5 years from now that someone like, late to the party, but holy shit, when X happened, that, like, I'm just a changed person, and it will be just as touching 5 years from now when that tweet shows up, or whatever future tech 5 years from now when we're all living on Mars and on the moon.
Yeah, I think that's the legacy thing I keep talking about, and I think that's probably the biggest shift from all the other work I've done in my entire career, is that everything else disappeared fast. Even the written content that I had done that was fictional, like even that stuff, just by virtue of the way the media companies I worked for operated, so it's gone so fucking fast. And I think my favorite thing about working in dev versus working in media is a group of hundreds of people working on something for years and having all of it come out at once to this big explosion rather than, yep, we made a YouTube video for an hour and there it is. No one remembers it next week. And life feels like it has more meaning, which is wild, but it does. It's just infinitely more impactful for me, let alone for all the other people who experience it, which is, it's just a very cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Can't wait for Mike to not play it.
Yeah, seriously. We should definitely start holding auditions for our developer, like, director chair
it's
of
Rami.
this show.
It's definitely Rami. There's no way it's not Rami. Like, I've already got all of you replaced in my head, obviously. Yeah.
I know, Grant.
Yeah, definitely Grant. I can imagine how different this show would be. We get Nolan, we get Grant, and we get Rami. It's a very different show. Oh, no, I guess it has to be Greg rather than Nolan.
Can't we? What about you? There's got to be, like, nothing would be more hilarious than it's on your channel, but you're also not on the show.
I feel like who's the easiest to replace me with? You just swap me out, because it has to be someone who's not a writer-director. It's just a writer, which is, like, actually a lot less common for.
I was gonna go. Yeah, I was about to say Ken Levine, but you're right. If it's purely
Ken
writer.
Levine. Thank you, though. I really appreciate that correlation. Yeah, it's Ken Levine. Yeah. My alter ego is Ken Levine. I'm right up there.
Well, look, if you're going to swap me out for Grant Kirkhope, who is obviously superior in all ways.
I think he would strongly argue with you about that.
Except that no one would know what he's saying, because when he talks, he's like... but yeah, it's... no, I'm saying the upgrade.
Fair.
You know,
yeah.
Ken is an upgrade.
Greg Miller is an upgrade.
Greg's an upgrade. Rami's an upgrade. We're all thoroughly replaceable.
Yeah, all right.
But to that end, I will say, just special shout out to. I remember a few years ago when Civil War came out, the movie, the MCU movie, Captain America: Civil War. It came out the same day as Uncharted 4, and what was extremely noteworthy and was a first ever. Was that here you had one of the biggest releases of the year, movie-wise, and one of the biggest releases of the year, game-wise, were both scored by Henry Jackman.
Oh.
And the fact that they came out on the same day...
Wow, what a big day for him.
Was an astonishing and incredibly rare thing. To that end, big shout-out to my dear friend and highly admired colleague, Bear McCreary, for not only scoring God of War Ragnarok, for sure one of the, if not the biggest game release of 2022, and like probably, I'm sure there's like, whether it's budget or scope or like, it's surely like among the like kind of more substantial games probably ever.
I would think so, yeah.
Just like by virtue of the franchise it's a part of and all that. But to be that hot on the heels of Rings of Power, quite literally the biggest TV show ever
Bear
made.
did Rings of Power as well?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. God, he's very
there's huge
good.
There's huge swaths of the score where you go, this gives me some serious God of War vibes.
Wow.
Actually,
Damn.
like, yeah, it's so to Bear manages a big operation. He's very talented. He's very hardworking. He's a guy that actually really does try to make his scores. He tries to imbue them with something that gives them some kind of angle. He doesn't just go, okay, it's a Hollywood thing, let's do the big Hollywood thing. And Rings of Power is in fact probably the closest to him just trying to be fundamentally traditional. And at minimum, it's so tuneful. There's like 50 really genuinely memorable melodies, that is the hallmark of the great traditional scores. And God of War has that same.
He is incredible, and I think he's done an incredible job on Ragnarok as well.
I can't wait. I've heard none of it. I know that
good.
It was an unbelievably huge undertaking.
We had a listening party in maybe like March or something, and it was my first time hearing it, and I was like, all of it in one piece, that is, and it was like, holy shit. It's like chills the whole time. He's very good at what he does.
He has hit a benchmark this year that I would put forth no composer has ever, to have scored essentially the biggest, because I think that with all due respect to Henry Jackman, the tale of Civil War and Uncharted 4 are shorter than Rings of Power, like culturally speaking. Like these are both events on a level that Rings of Power especially is like, love it or hate it, it's just so talked about and it's like and they're so Amazon.
Funnily
is
enough,
so
that's not
all
my
in.
perspective at all. I would think that Rings of Power almost doesn't exist because I see nobody talk about it.
Well, I've admittedly seen mostly people talking about how much they hate it. But point being, like, just it's a splash. It's an asteroid crashing into the ocean, regardless of your feeling.
For sure,
like, it's just such, and the scope of it. I mean, it's a $500 million.
It's the most
TV
expensive
show. Like,
TV show ever made, isn't it?
yeah, it's like well over 60 million per episode.
Oh my god!
Like, it's truly mind blowing. Like, I remember when Joss Whedon's Firefly pilot budget came out. Like, pilot was like 9 million or something, 10 million.
Firefly?
I think yeah, it was like the highest budget pilot ever by a mile. It was like this big deal.
That's amazing because it doesn't come across like it's super high budget.
Well, for the time.
Yeah, I guess. But no, I mean that in a complimentary way. It feels so like insular and
It was a
contained.
elaborate set. I mean, they basically built the entire spaceship.
Yeah,
and,
true.
And, you know,
The
and
whole
bear in
ass
mind,
ship.
this was 20 years ago, network television. Very different from the HBO model of like the super prestige-y thing that, you know, Game of Thrones and all those kind of paved the way for a whole new level of like ratcheting things up. But anyway, regardless of one's opinion, I personally have mixed feelings at best on Rings of Power, except on the score. To me, the score is the only truly unimpeachable aspect of it. And God of War, I expect to love everything about, including the score. I just can't not give a shout out. Bear and I talk pretty often, and I just hold him in such high regard, and I'm so happy for him. He was a guy that my relationship with him 20 years ago when I was at university, he had graduated USC just ahead of me, and and he was just starting Battlestar Galactica, and all the professors were super proud. He was like the star alum because, you know, he had gone off and was doing this noteworthy thing pretty soon out of school, and they were all very proud, and the work was really good. It was very striking and very distinctive. To this day, it's a score that people still talk about, like very, very memorable, very unique. And so everything that I did that was supposedly cool, they'd go, oh, that was like this one time Bear when he was my student. And so I didn't know this guy and I hated him. And then a couple years later, we were both graduated. Like he had been out of school a few years. I had relatively recently graduated, and I got asked at an alumni event to introduce him. And we met backstage 5 seconds before I walked out on stage, and I told a whole speech about how I hated this guy so much because I couldn't do anything without people comparing me to him. And then later I realized, oh, he's a badass. They're complimenting me. And it made me like flip a corner, and then we became good friends, and now we talk all the time, and I think he's awesome.
So you guys should get married. That's a great relationship origin story right there. Yeah,
no, it was, and he didn't know any of this. I literally walked out on stage and he was hearing this for the first time, like, because he didn't know who I was. He had no clue who I was. Anyway,
that's amazing.
This was many years ago, but yeah, very happy for him. I think he has done such great work on the first game, and I'm sure it only goes. I can't wait to hear it.
I think so. Very biased. On that note, I have to get back to work because
same
more work to be done. Thank you, Austin. Mike was busy. Troy, I think, just finished traveling.
Troy was out of town for like 100 years.
Yeah,
we did enjoy a very lovely dinner multiple dinners in London.
You guys have multiple dinners? Shit. All right.
And breakfasts.
What?
And yeah, we had like a little soiree in London, and it was glorious. But he was very excited to come home and see his kid. He was really eager to be with his boy. It was gone for a long time, and it was kind of killing him.
Well, hopefully we'll have him next week. We shall see. And yeah, by next week the game will be out, so hopefully you guys can have played a little bit of it. I would love that. All right, this is Play Watch Listen. I'm Alanah. I'm a video game writer. That's also Wizard. He's a composer, and everyone else is gone. Okay, bye.